Okay, so you want to know who the weakest and strongest out of all the Primarchs? I got you. However, before I answer this, just know this question is a little more complicated than you think, so I'll do my best. Now, if we're talking outright physically the strongest, it's Vulkan, without a shadow of a doubt. Vulkan has been stated multiple times to be physically the strongest Primarch out of all of them. Even Vulkan's weapon, Dawnbringer, is so heavy that most of the other Primarchs can't even lift the thing. And also, when he was sparring with his brothers, he stated that he was actually holding back on them because he was afraid to hurt them. But when we're talking about pure striking force, it is without a doubt Ferrus Manus. Now, Ferrus Manus is also physically extremely strong, but he also has iron hand. Though when it comes to punching, yeah, Ferrus Manus is at the tippy top of all the Primarchs. Comparing Ferrus Manus and Vulkan is like comparing a prime Mike Tyson with a pair of brass knuckles to Eddie Hall. That's really the best analogy I can think. But then there's also someone to consider like Angron. Angron, before he was empowered by Chaos, was strong enough to where he could lift a Warhound Titan. Now, although this is impressive, he did also shatter pretty much every bone in his body. But when he became a Demon Primarch, he got a whole new level of power. First off, when it comes to Khorne's boons typically give you things like enhanced strength. It was said during the Siege of Terra, Angron was the most powerful thing the Traitor Legion had to throw at the Imperium. Then we also have someone like the Lion. Now, sure, the Lion isn't physically as strong as Vulkan, Theris, or, Demon Primarch Angron, but the Lion makes up with it with extreme skill. The Lion is so skilled in combat, he essentially has Ultra Instinct. And what I mean by that is the Lion can essentially fight without even thinking about it. He was so good in combat, he was able to beat Konrad Curze, and Konrad Curze could see into the future. And he also beat Angron in a fight as well. But then there's also Leman Russ. Now, Leman Russ isn't as skilled as a Lion, but he is around his level, and he's also a tiny bit stronger than him. Though this also kind of more or less evens them out. Leman Russ also has a warp disrupting howl, which can stun people and completely negate psyker powers as well. Also, Leman Russ was essentially designed to be the anti-Primarch. And what I mean by this is when Primarchs essentially get a little bit heretical and, try to rebel, the Emperor sends Leman Russ after them. It was stated that Leman Russ took down at least one of the lost Primarchs. Leman Russ also almost took down Horus, and Horus again is one of the most powerful Primarchs, and also he's being personally juiced up by all 4 Chaos Gods. I believe the only reason why he didn't is because he actually hesitated. And there was also the time when he beat Magnus. Speaking of which, there is also Magnus. Now, I said this before in one of my previous videos where I was explaining how Magnus is actually pretty much the jobber of 40k, but Magnus on paper should be the strongest Primarch. Magnus is an extremely powerful psyker. The only people I can think of that could be remotely more powerful than him is the Emperor and maybe Malkador. However, besides that, Magnus is extremely overpowered to almost everyone in the setting. I'd go as far to say Magnus could just beat Goku. Now I just painted a target on my head for the Dragon Ball community. But yeah, what is Goku gonna do when Magnus does stuff like teleports Goku's heart out of his chest, or he makes Goku go insane? Magnus can do things like throw black holes and teleport entire planets. Magnus, even in his fight with Vulkan, was able to unwrite his DNA. I mean, what do you do against someone who's like that? The only reason why it didn't work on Vulkan is because Vulkan is essentially a super perpetual at this point. But there's always one that always stands to the top, and that's usually Sanguinius. Sanguinius has been stated multiple times in the lore to be the most powerful Primarch, mostly because Sanguinius has so many things working for him that all work together that makes him absolutely intensely overpowered. He's incredibly savage in combat, he's incredibly skilled, he can see into the future, he can fly and also use his wings like extra appendages, so you're basically fighting someone with 4 arms at that point. Sanguinius's willpower is so intense, he can even alter fate to some extent. All within the span of 1 day or maybe a couple days, Sanguinius defeat Khorne's most powerful demon, the most powerful demon Primarch besides Horus. Horus, when he was depowered, an Emperor-class Titan, yet yeah, Sanguinius went through a lot of stuff. And also, there's a theory that Sanguinius is 2 warp gods essentially fused together into one being. But lastly, there is Horus Lupercal, or Chaos-empowered Horus. Now, when Horus flipped that switch and got supercharged by all the Chaos Gods, he was able to unalive Sanguinius fairly easily on his side, and he was actually a tad bit stronger than the Emperor. The Emperor had to steal some of Horus's powers just to actually be able to beat him. And he didn't even beat him easily, it took everything out of him. Yeah, technically Chaos-empowered Horus is the strongest Primarch. Someone else who I wanted to include here on this list is Fulgrim. Now, Fulgrim's pursuit of perfection has also led to him being one of the best swordsmen in the entire series. And also, Fulgrim has the highest Primarch unalive count with both Ferrus and Guilliman. Yeah, Fulgrim's surprisingly very strong. If we're talking who is outright physically the weakest Primarch, then it's Konrad Curze without a doubt. Now, hear me out. Konrad Curze is a very, very good fighter, but that's not because he's overwhelmingly strong. That's because he's very nimble, very agile, very fast, very sneaky, and he also has the ability to see into the future. But if you put him and the rest of the Primarchs in a weightlifting competition, yeah, Konrad is getting last place on. You can even also make a similar argument like that to Fulgrim. Now, Fulgrim isn't, again, physically very strong for the rest of Primarchs, but he's very nimble, very quick, very agile. The only reason Fulgrim was really able to take down Ferrus Manus was because he got a strength boost from the demon in the Layer Blade. But I do believe it was stated somewhere that all the Primarchs believed that Konrad was physically the weakest. Now there's also someone like Guilliman to consider on this list as well. Now Guilliman, again, isn't really one of the fighter Primarchs. Guilliman is the guy who sits in the desk and forms the plan. Guilliman is really good at what he does, it's just what he does isn't fighting. I've said this multiple times, just because Guilliman isn't the best fighter doesn't mean he's still not very strong. He's still a Primarch. 9 times out of 10, when he punches something, it's not going to be living anymore. And Guilliman also has pretty much lost almost all the fights he's had with other Primarchs, except for Lorgar. Lorgar, without a doubt, is definitely the weakest Primarch. Now, yes, he isn't physically the weakest, but his fighting abilities suck, his psyker powers suck. Lorgar just sucks. He is not very strong. He has been beaten by Guilliman, and Guilliman has been beaten by pretty much everyone. Lorgar is currently empowered by all 4 Chaos Gods, but he sucks so much he is sitting in a tower because he is scared because his other brother, Corvus Corax, is waiting out of there to beat his ass. Yeah, the overall weakest Primarch is without a doubt 100% Lorgar. Comment down below who or what you want me to talk about next, and feel free to give this video a like. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.